This Calathea alga grass is my pride and joy. Just look at him. What a lovely big beast he is. He reminds me of me in many ways. Big and beastly. I'm 6'6" if you didn't know. Judging by the comments in my videos, he's building up a bit of a cult following. How did I whip him up into such great shape? Well, it's not all been sunshine and roses, let me tell you. We've had a fair few confrontations in the past, but I can safely say I now know what he wants, I think. Which is more than I can say for certain other people in my life. Mr. Sheffield! Anyway, I've got some nifty tricks up my sleeve, as well as some silly mistakes I've made that you'll do well to avoid. So lots to dig into. Plus, one mistake I'm still doing right now that has the potential to destroy this plant once and for all. Slight exaggeration maybe. The number one tip I can give you that has absolutely changed my plant game forever is to avoid giving them dirty water. And by dirty water I mean the cheeky chemicals that our local water companies add to tap water to make it safe to drink. I'm not trying to start any conspiracies here or anything. Those chemicals are harmless to people in my humble opinion, but not so much for our dear little darlings. That's right, the slow build-up of chlorine or chloramine, as well as fluoride in some cases in the soil, can make a fussy plant like the Calathea sick, and the number one symptom of a sick Calathea is brown tips on the leaves. I know, I bang on about brown tips on the leaves all the time, but it's a difference between me snuggling up to a plant on an evening or wanting to lob it in the bin. So when I realised that I'd hit upon a remedy to this problem, I was the happiest man alive. And I thank my viewers because they are the ones that can take all the glory. The remedy, my plant friend, is water conditioner or dechlorination. Of course, there are a few other solutions to this problem, like collecting rainwater, using distilled water or filtered water, but water conditioner is by far the simplest method in my opinion. No going to the shops every week to buy gallons of distilled water. No going outside with buckets and boxes when it rains like a lunatic. Just add a couple of drops to the watering can and all your chlorine problems are gone. I know what you're thinking. Just let it sit out and chlorine will dissipate, right? Well, not for chloramine, unfortunately. Ask your local authority what they are using. Chances are it will be chloramine, which doesn't dissipate. So last year, I had brown leaf problems with Mr. Calathea alga grass, but since using water conditioner this year, he's really turned a corner. New leaves coming out untroubled. The water conditioner is in my Amazon store, link below if you want to try it, by the way. The thing you might notice straight away about this guy is that he's living directly in a porcelain pot. I know, shock horror, no drainage holes. But Mr. Sheffield, you bang on about keeping your plants in pots with drainage holes all the time, and you don't even do it yourself. Yes, this is true. Criminally hypocritic, isn't it? But in my defense, I always say to do this if you're fairly new to houseplants. Noob, as we like to say on the channel. It's the safest bet to not kill them in a couple of weeks. I, on the other hand, am a plant expert. Well, I've got lots of them anyway, and they don't seem to be dying. Stop sniggering in the back, I can hear you. I'm extremely careful when it comes to watering this guy. I know he'll kick up a fuss if his feet stay wet for too long, and he'll start telling his mates I don't know what I'm doing. The cheek. I stick my trusty moisture meter into his private parts before I even consider watering him, and he seems to like it. If it reads moist, then I leave it another few days and check again until it gets to the point where it's reading dry. Simples. Well, not quite, because how much water should I give him, considering it's got no escape? I mean, give too much and he's living in a swamp. Not good for the roots. It's taken a bit of trial and error, but I give about a third of the volume of the pot of water, and that seems to be just the ticket. Of course, I could go a little and often, but I do want to make sure all the roots get their drink, so I add a decent amount. But look, don't do what I've done. It's not worth the hassle and potential pain further down the line. Stick it inside a plastic pot inside a pretty pot. That way you can dump the excess. Easy peasy. I'll let you in on a cheeky little secret. This fella has been living in this very same pot for over 2 years. He's surely a root-bound mess, right? Well, look at him. Apparently not. And how have I achieved such a minor miracle? By hacking his nether regions off. Roots, that is. Yes, that's right. On 2 occasions, I've cut off the bottom third of his root system like some sort of savage, and he's loved it every time. I might just have blown your mind, or if you saw my video a few months ago on this topic, maybe not, but plants are perfectly happy to have their roots pruned. I'll leave a link to that video in the corner, by the way. Root pruning is the dark arts of plant witchcraft and wizardry that will turn you from Professor Lockhart to Professor Snape. Got a root-bound plant and don't want to upsize his pot? Then consider cutting down his roots with a clean, sharp, serrated knife like I've done plenty of times to my plants. Not only is it space-saving, it also improves the health of the plant. Hear me out. Roots are like people in that they become old and tired. Old and tired roots are not as flexible as they used to be, so aren't as efficient at taking up nutrients to the foliage. Instead of leaving them to take up valuable space in the pot, cut them off and let new, young, sexy roots take their place. It might look like it's been sucker punched for a week or 2, but once it's got its breath back, it'll be firing on all cylinders, ready to rock to round 12. So my guy kept running out of room in his home, and rather than rehouse him, which can be a pain to keep doing every single year, I just cut away a third of his roots and voila! No rehoming needed. If you've done this, then share your stories with the world down below. Now, we're not living in a perfect world, especially when it comes to Calatheas, which means you can never have one that is free of blemishes. Give this sucker everything it could possibly ever want and it will still give you some brown crispy leaves. I swear they do this just to spite me sometimes. Anyway, what do we do when such a ghastly thing happens? No, not that. No need to be quite so dramatic. Instead, get your trusty pruners out and cut out anything that doesn't look right. And do this any time of year or any time of day. It really doesn't matter. Winter or summer, come rain or shine, he won't kick up any more of a fuss than he already does. It's the best way to hide all the ills of your plant collection and make it seem like you know what you're doing to all your friends. Or in my case, a few hundred people on the internet. Now honestly, I've not tarted him up just for this video. What do you take me for? Look, this guy's got some stragglers that don't appear to like the friendship group, so instead of fretting about it, I'll just cut them off and set them free. And now we come to the most critical thing I've done to turn this puppy into the great hound he is. Light. Yes, light is the single biggest factor helping your plants become the big beast they'd always dreamed they'd be. Keep it in the closet and not much will happen. Keep it near a bright window and growth will explode. Quel surprise. But Mr. Sheffield, it looks like you keep it miles away from the nearest window. What's up with that? This is true, and may I say what an inquisitive mind you have. I used to keep him next to the big bay window in my living room, but the thing is it got so big it kept blocking our view of the telly. Mrs. Sheffield wasn't best pleased, let me tell you. Basically, there's nowhere for him to go without his big behind getting in the way, so I've told him to settle for a spot next to my IKEA cabinet. And to stop him moaning relentlessly, I've popped a Santi grow light over his head so it at least gets medium light. Seems to have shut him up for now anyway. Santi link and code for a 15% discount down below, by the way. So yes, he needs at least medium light to not kick up a fuss, and grow lights are perfect. It allows me to control how much light he gets and for how long. I keep it on for about 12 hours a day, by the way. There is a trade-off though. In his old home, which is a spot where he got about 3 hours of afternoon sun, he used to send out funky little yellow flowers in early spring, but since moving him away, he's stopped. Maybe it's a protest or something. At least it's not a dirty one, I suppose. In any case, they didn't amount to much, but I missed them nonetheless. I said he used to get 3 hours of sun, but remember, this is Sheffield sun and not Texan sun. If you're not familiar, Sheffield sun sucks. It never shows its face, and when it does, it's not particularly strong. Feel free to experiment, but watch closely. The leaves need no invitation to crisp up. Another thing I do, but nowhere near as often as I should, is give him a wash behind his ears. Calatheas are magnets for dust and dirt, you know, what with those big leaves and all, and having a thin layer of dirt on the leaves makes it hard for the sun's rays to get through and give the plant energy. I'm not talking about diligently sitting there with a wet cloth and wiping each individual leaf either. No, that would drive me crazy. I'm talking about taking him outside and spraying him down. Yes, you can do this no problem with your plants. It's a bit tricky, what with his pot not having drainage holes, so I do need to spray him down at an angle to avoid too much water going into the soil, but I do manage. The great thing about this is that it keeps spider mites at bay. They hate wet conditions, you see, so the more you clean it, the more they will avoid it like the plague. If you are a poor sucker that is struggling with spider mites, then firstly I commiserate, and secondly you'll want to check out this video next because there's a white powder that does a great job of destroying them. Check it out and make sure you subscribe for more fun.